start on the method feeder. Just about to cast it out. Looking to hit the corner of that island where the aerator is there. Just going to sink the line. It's about 2.5 foot deep over there next to that island. Just tighten up. The tip's just straight. Don't want too much of a bend in it. You want your tip as close as you can to the water as well. Just add a liner then. Usually always start on a method feeder at Decoy here on this peg, as it's always worth a quick few fish against that island. At the start of the match, probably for the first like 40 minutes, you might catch like 20-30 pound on it, while you're priming your other lines, such as down your edges. Today I'm feeding casters down the right hand side where it's a little bit deeper, and down the left hand side I've fed loads of micras and corn down there to hopefully catch some big carp down there later. And I've got my pinging line at 13 metres where I'm going to fish hard pellets up and down. The gear that I'm fishing on the method is, I've got the 11 foot precision FXT feeder rod. It's a lovely rod, to be honest, it's quite soft. I've got a 4000 FMR reel as well, which is loaded with 8-pound line. Oh, there's one on. Just give him a quick bit of a pull, I don't want him to go around the aerator. Feels like a better fish, this one. Also on the method I'm fishing 020 line and a size 12 hook, as they're big fish in here, they're not bothered about your hooks and sizes. And I'm fishing a Speedy's Worcester 7mm, either a pink or a yellow one on the hook. Feels like an F1 this. As you can see, this rod's got loads of soft, really soft. It's beginning to fight now. It's probably a carp. Yeah, it's a carp. Carp about £4. Slip him into the net. I'm using a 24-gram hybrid also, as I just said, to 020 12 hook. Sometimes on here, if you swap the colour, like the yellow ones, you could catch a couple on that and then you change over to the pink ones, and you could get a couple of quick fish on that as well. Just loading it up. As I'm loading it up, I'm just going to be feeding my other lines as well, preparing them ready to go on, just in case this dies. Usually you'd leave the feeder in. Usually I'd leave the feeder in for about 2 minutes. If I hadn't got a quick bite, I'd recast and repeat the process. As it doesn't take a lot for fish to come into your peg and eat all your bait. This is an F1. Little F1. I'd carry on repeating this process until it died, and usually it can last, if you have a good hour on it, you could have a quick 60 pound, but very unlikely. Usually about 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes. You might catch a quick 20, 30 pound, and if you catch that, it's a big advantage. Now the method feeder has died. I've been feeding the other line, which is cast to shallow down this edge down here. I've seen an odd swirl down here while I've been on the method. I've left it for probably 45 minutes and I've probably had 30 pound on the feeder. It's died now, so I'm going to change down the edge here. I've seen this, obviously seen a swirl down there, but there was only like a couple of fish there. Now it's solid down there. There's loads of F1s and they're swirling. Just been chucking in every now and then 15 or 20 casters every like couple of minutes, and I just wanted to make them confident. So when you go in down there, you don't just catch one, you want to be absolutely emptying it down there in a match situation. I'm just going to run you through the rig now, which is, I've got a 0.2 float, little dibber. I got shotted with 2 number 10s and a number 11. I like to have my 2 number 10s under the float and my number 11, which is near my hook length. It's a 4-inch hook length. Here at Decoy you have to have a 12-inch lash, so when I'm fishing down the edge I don't usually lift and drop, I usually slap it and hold tight line, which I'll show you that in a second. I'm just going to put my caster on now. I use a baiting tool for that, as you putting a caster on without it usually end up splitting it. It's easier like this. Just easier to put it on. Just getting the band in the middle of the caster. Just like that. As you can probably see on the camera there, that just sits perfect underneath the hook. I'm going to ship out now. Before we ship out, you feed a few casters. It's like that, so when you slap yours in, it's yours is only going to be the only caster a foot deep. A couple of slaps, hold tight line, and fish on. After you've hooked a fish, always feed a few casters after, so you get them confident there again for when you drop back in again. That's the main thing about this, is feeding while you've got one on, because you want to make sure there's loads there for when you go back in. I'm using the Yellow Frenzy elastic today for shallow. It's awesome for this sort of fishing. Plenty of stretch in it. Big F1, about 3.5 pound. Pop that in the net. And the best thing about fishing banded caster, you ain't got to change your caster again. As you can see, that caster there is still on, ready to go again. So you drop feed again, feed some casters. There's a lot of fish down there. Fishing a foot deep. Same again, a couple of slaps. They come to the noise, hold tight line. You don't have to strike. There's another fish on. Caster shallow is such a deadly method, especially for F1s. They love casters. And it don't take long to put a weight together of these F1s. In Beastie here at Decoy, every one's £3, £3 plus. Like, that's probably nearly £5. Like the same again, your caster's not ruined, still there. Same again, feed some casters. I'm using the Frenzy stubby kits today as well, short kit, which when you're fishing shallow, it's key. It's quicker, a couple of slaps. Feed some casters, just if you don't get a bite, just keep feeding and just keep slapping. They come to the noise. Sometimes as well on here is not feed a couple, not feed and then slap your rig over to like tempt one on instead of feeding. But sometimes on here, like, you can only fish 12 inches. So if they're shallower than that, you do tend to miss a few bites. Another fish on. Yet again, just feed. F1s on this lake love cover. So if you've got reeds down the edge, they just love it when you're feeding next to the reeds. If you ain't got any reeds, you don't really seem to catch many on it. Oh, a tench. About a £2 tench. But I've had 3 fish on that one caster and now it's come off. At least you ain't got it's 3 fish that you've caught without having to like waste time and bait up again. This little tool, this banding tool, is a diamond for this sort of fishing. It's quick. You always get your band slap bang in the middle of the caster every time. Just before you ship out again, just feed some casters. And just slap your rig in over the top. Problem is there, some of the fish are shallower than a foot, and that's sometimes a bit of a problem on here because obviously you can't fish anything, can't fish shallower than a foot. but it doesn't take long to put a weight together in a match. Like, you started on the method, you've had a quick 30 pound, and you can catch 50, 60 pound easy in half an hour, 40 minutes on this caster line. Oh, it's barbel. And also, like, you're catching a bit of everything. Like, it's not just F1s, it's also barbel as well. Nice barbel. Now we move on to the next option, another line which is hard pellet at 13 metres. This is the line I'd go to is if I was getting roached out down the edge on my caster line, because not every peg here on Beastie you can go down the edge on caster shallow and get one a bung, because it doesn't happen. Like, every peg's different on here. They're all like their own little pegs. I'm just going to move on now and show you the rig of what I'm using for fishing out long. It's a FP 700 float, frenzy float, 020 to 016, which is a hook length, 016 hook length. I've got a bulk, which is 7 number 9s strung out, and I'm also using the frenzy blue elastic, which is 12 to 14 rated, which is nice and soft when you're fishing out there. You don't want to be spooking loads of fish and bumping any. Right, I'm just going to put a pellet on and ship out, and hopefully we'll get one. I'm just fishing 6mm copping pellet, feeding skretting form, 6mm, sorry. The main thing when you're doing this as well is the way you lay your rig in. Like, you don't want to just let your rig fall down in one great, like straight down. You want to lay it in from the side so it falls in naturally. I've got this float shotted down quite a lot, so I can just see the tip bristle. As soon as you laid your rig in, just feed a few, oh, there's a bite. Feed a few pellets. Also today, with it being quite warm, it's really hard to keep them on the bottom, but usually on this lake you usually catch a few bit bigger carp on the bottom. As soon as you get back to the top git, feed a few pellets. Like that, 5 or 6 pellets. About £3 carp. As I'm getting so many lines, I'm just going to have a quick look on the shallow rig, because sometimes that can be a lot better. As you can see out there, it's fizzing quite a lot. This lake's got quite silty. I wonder if they're probably stirring the bottom. I usually look to fish about 2 foot on this shallow line. Usually start about 2 foot. And on this one I always usually use a 6mm skretting, which is what I'm feeding. Just as you're shipping out shallow, just hold your rig there like that. Just feed a few pellets. You want to slap your rig in like that. So it's laid in, like same as on the when you're fishing on the bottom, but you're slapping it in. They come into the noise. Just let's have a bite then. Not very often on beastie here where you catch really shallow on pellet. Usually always catch about 2 foot. Oh, there's one. I'm using the yellow elastic on this instead of the blue as it's a little bit lighter. Same again, when you get back to the top kit, just feed a few pellets so you're feeding it ready for when you next fish £2 F1. Lovely fish. Then you do the same again, basically repeat the process. Just before you ship out again, feed like 4 or 5 pellets, so you're getting them there ready for when you slap your pellet in, that your one's there with a hook on ready. Same again, slap your rig in. Sometimes you miss a few bites here because you've got to have the 12-inch rule, so you can't have it really, it's really hard to hold it quite tight. That's why on here sometimes the jigger rig's better, because obviously you can just hold it tight then. Just a bite then. Feeding like 6 or 7 pellets. Usually when you get a bite on this, usually it's when you slap your rig in. And there's one on. As soon as you hooked one, a few pellets. It's only a little F1. It might be a skimmer. It's a skimmer. Exactly the same again. 4 or 5 pellets. Ping them in. Few slaps, probably 3 slaps. If you don't get a bite, then you want to be probably about 30 seconds. Leave it, or probably less, 15. Feed a few pellets. Just keep repeating the process. charging line where I'm going to feed it for big fish. It's a good line for like the last couple of hours of the match, especially on Beastie here. Like you can go from hero to zero literally in the last hour. They're that big in here down the edge. They average from about 10 to 20 pound. I'm just going to feed it quickly and then I'll run you through my rig. I'm just feeding half a pot of micros with a few grains of corn in it. It's about 3 foot down this edge here. It's probably a little bit too deep for these big fish. Hopefully we'll get one. Right. My rig that I'm using is an F1M 0.3, 021 main line to an 018 hook length. 6 numbered 8s, and I'm going to fish double worm on the hook. I choose to fish double worm on the hook. It's just personal preference really. I don't really think it matters in here when they're down the edge. Just eat anything. But I've been catching a lot of fish on double worm just lately. See if we can catch you one. Having a bit of a problem with liners. The big fish in here. I fished the green elastic here, 16 to 18. You don't need to mess about with the line because they're not bothered. I love this elastic because it's really soft on the strike, and then when they, as you can see, it doesn't take long to put a weight together of